Welcome to Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all the newest #1 comic books that came out for the week and I deem them worthy or not worthy. Guys, I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content and you love me helping you make decisions of what comic books to buy, guys, consider hitting that subscribe button. Just so you know, there are spoilers in these types of videos, so if you haven't read your comic books yet, make sure you read them, come back, and let's talk about it. Fantastic Four Annual Issue 1. The continuation of Contest of Chaos. Now, I said this last week, I'll do anything possible not to read this story again or buy this comic book. I guess it was on my FOC. So, just in the spirit of Worthy Ones, I'm like, why not read it to see how much worse this story can actually get, right? So in this issue here, we wound up getting Johnny Blaze and we wound up getting Johnny Storm meeting in hell with each other. And it's just kind of weird how they met up. Just like all the previous issues, you wind up seeing Johnny Storm. He's in some kind of store buying some boots. And the next thing you know is like he looks throughout the door and he's like in hell. And same with Johnny Blaze. Like they're both in the same place and they're going between hell and real reality. And they wind up fighting against each other. And just the fighting was even good. And they're like, well, why are we fighting each other? And Johnny Blaze is like, well, you spilled innocent blood or whatever it was. And he's like, get real. And again, the fight was just so lackluster. There's no real story depth in this comic book. And at the end of the day, you wind up getting to see Johnny Storm losing. Or does he win? No, Johnny Storm wins. I'm sorry. And he's going to wind up being in the next round of the whole Contest of Chaos. And you're not even explained like what this contest is or what it represents. You're kind of left in the dark. And then once again, you wind up seeing a couple of pages with Clea Strange, Spider-Man, and Jessica Jones, and nothing is really said. They're just like, we have to go and stop this, and we have to teleport here, and magic means this and that. I'm like, we're not getting any story. This book is so not worthy. It just seems like each part gets worse and worse, and the fights are not even worth it. You don't know why this is happening, and you're spending $5 per issue for this, and I'm hoping that this was the last one that was on my pull list, so I have to read this horrible story anymore. I just can't stand it. It's so bad. I'm giving this book an F. It's not a good story, guys. If you like it though, more power to you. And if you go through with all these other annuals, I'm curious to hear in the comments below on what you think of it. Realm of X issue 1. Now, I have been collecting a lot of the Fall of X comic books just to see how their stories spin off of the Gala issue. And a lot of the stories actually have been good. So far, the one true one I did not like was Astonishing Iceman. And I was kind of skeptic about Deadpool. I'm like, should I try it or not? I decided to pass on that because I'm just not really a Deadpool fan and how he's written in the comics. But I did decide to try Realm of X. And the main reason why is Illyana is in this comic book, okay? The artwork looks good in here. I like the 2-page spreads. I love the colors. I love the way the characters look. Great facial expressions right here. And right from the start, there was some pretty cool action. Typhoid Mary is in the comic book, so I was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. So in this comic book, we wind up seeing, I think it's Typhoid Mary, Illyana. Let me see if I can find the other characters. Dust, Mirage, Morrow, and Curse. They wind up getting transported to one of the 10 realms, right? And it's like almost like an Asgard type of place, and they're talking with these people and whatnot, and they're worried about this white witch that is coming and whatnot. And in the meantime, we get to see Curse, who's this mutant where if she feels threatened, she can actually, I guess, I don't know, do some bad spells on you and whatnot. And we get to see like these wolves come after her, and she like puts bubbles in her mouth, and then there's these trolls that threaten her, and she puts them to pieces. So basically we wind up seeing our heroes here trying to find her, okay? Ileana doesn't have her powers based off of what happened in the gala, so they just can't transport anywhere, all right? So they're stuck. This book is just not worthy. I felt like there was nothing happening in this comic book that I found myself wanting to pursue further. They're just stranded on this place looking for Curse, and that was pretty much it. There was nothing here where I was like, man, this is very intriguing. It seems very loosely connected to what's going on with Fall of X. The only thing that I felt that it was connected to was they couldn't actually transport back. And you just find out what's going on in their little reality right now. I didn't like the threat. I didn't like the supporting characters in here. This is a skip. I'm not going to read this going forward. So I'm going to give this one a D. What can I say? I'm not very positive right now. Jean Grey issue 1. Now, I was very curious about this comic book based off of the events off of the gala, as you wind up getting to see Jean Grey die, okay? This book is written by Louise Simonson. The artwork is done by Bernard Chang. I thought the artwork was really good, and this is called, like, Mind Maze, I think this one is. Yeah, Mind Maze, because it's like, the story is based off of Jean Grey as she's dying, and she's trying to find out where it all went wrong. And we get to see our X-Men in a much younger state, where it was around the time when Brian Michael Bendis wrote them, like when they went back in time and then they came back to the present and they knew everything that was going on. And it's just like Jean Grey is manipulating all the humans and everybody around her, and she's turning people into vegetables. She winds up becoming the Phoenix. It's just all kinds of crazy stuff. It was kind of a confusing story to me because I wasn't sure if this was something that was taking place in the past or of a what-if type of situation. So I was a little bit confused in here. It did seem like it took place in the past because Magneto's wearing his old costume. Jean Grey makes him a vegetable and stuff like that. The team disassembles from her because she finds out that she's becoming too powerful. She winds up becoming the Phoenix in this issue, and she's just doing everything for the wrong reasons. Again, the artwork looked good. I liked the story. I just couldn't connect the dots really on what was exactly going on and when this took place. So any information here would be great because sometimes comics like this go over my head. And I'm going to deem this book worthy, though. I do want to see how it continues. I don't like the confusion of it. Maybe it's meant to be that way. Maybe we're going to get a completely separate story from this point on. I don't know. But I'm going to give this one a C+. Overall, I did find it entertaining, and I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Unleashed issue 1. Now, I didn't even know this comic book was coming out until last week. And I'm a huge, like, dog fan, and I love animals just in general. So I was very curious to see what Marvel's mascots have in store for the readers, right? Kyle Starks is the writer here. We have Jesus Hervas does the artwork. I actually enjoyed the artwork in this comic. I thought it looked pretty neat. I love the way the characters looked here. We actually get Kraven the Hunter in this comic book, which is very fitting because he hunts animals and he has to actually hunt Lockjaw in the very beginning of this comic book. The characters look neat. We get to see this random German Shepherd who wears a Demolition Man mask. And then we get to see all the other cast of characters in this comic book. So we wind up seeing the shepherd here who winds up having like a poodle by his side, and she is trying to find her person. That's what she calls her owner, right? And he's been missing for days and days. So she requires the help of the German shepherd, and then we come across Lucky the pizza dog, and then we come across Sam Wilson's bird, and then we come across who else is it? Is that it? That's in this comic book? I think so. I think until the actual and then was it Chewie the cat, and so that's kind of cool. And you wind up getting to see this cool investigation, trying to find out where this Poodle's person actually is, and they're trying to piece together all the clues, and you find out that the owner is actually an AIM scientist. So what happens is Kraven the Hunter captures Lockjaw because it has the power to teleport, and what this scientist, this AIM agent, decided to do was to use Lockjaw's powers so it could teleport Blackheart through the portal and him come through. And that's what happens at the end of this comic. So now all of a sudden, where we have the heavy hitter that comes in here, is it looks like our pets are going to recruit Throg in the whole mix of things. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm going to deem this book worthy. This book was a lot of fun. I love seeing all the characters' interactions with each other. I love how they talk to each other, and I love how this was a mystery book, and you got to see what this person's motive was. And even though it's like an AIM soldier and stuff like that, it doesn't mean it doesn't care about its dog. And it's cool to see the little dog actually, defend her person. She's like, oh, he feeds me, he does all this stuff, I can't believe he's this type of person. It's a very interesting story. At the end of the day, I'm going to give this book an A. I really enjoyed it. This was something different. Penguin issue 1, written by Tom King. So I'm really on the fence when it comes to Tom King's writing, and I said this in my haul video. I picked it up, I put it down, I picked it up, I put it down. Finally, the guy that works at the shop, Jacob, he's like, Mike, this was a good comic book. It kind of reaches into the Penguin being more of a normal person. So I was like, all right. And, when I open up this book and I see the dialogue in here, you're just like, holy cow, this thing is like a freaking novel, right? It's just everything that's going on in the Penguin's life, it's all written in every single panel. So what I think this book does a little bit too much is like the over explanation of, each character's thought process on the Penguin and who he is, and like how everyone thinks of him in a different way, which I did like that, but it was just a little bit too much. It was like, I would have loved to seen a little bit more action in this comic, as this book took me almost like a half hour to 35 minutes to read, but it was a very interesting story just to see their thought process. And the way this book opens up was very intriguing, and the way that it closes was very intriguing. Now, anything that's going to come within the next few issues, I don't know, right? So the book opens up with the Bat Boat. It's basically in the middle of the Gotham River and it's sinking. Batman has no use of his arms or anything like that, and he's trying to get them out, but they can't get out. So what happens is it looks like you see the thought process of the Penguin here 1 year earlier on how he kind of decided to change his life after his death, or after his fake death, I should say. And, he's lost weight. We wind up getting to see him get fitted in a new suit. And then you get to see kind of the thought process behind the tailor. You get to see the thought process behind, like, the hot dog guy stand. You get to see the thought process behind the private investigator on how they think of the Penguin. You also get to see his loved one, Rita, on what she thinks of him. And then all of a sudden, the best part in this one was about this guy in the flower shop and how his bird bit him. I thought that was very comical. But then you wind up getting to see Agent Nuri Espinoza come in, and she takes him into this government agency. Like, he's part of the government now. He has to fork over all his businesses to her and everything else if he wants to stay out of jail. And then at the end of the day, you wind up seeing him go from normal guy to the Penguin once again. He kills his tailor, and I thought that was kind of cool at the end. And then it goes back to the river as you see the Penguin and Batman basically drowning at the very end. They're neck deep up into water, and that's basically how the book ends. I'm going to deem this book worthy because I want to see where it goes, and I do love seeing the thoughts of all these people, like I said, on how the Penguin is, and I am curious on the development of this story as a whole. Are we going to continue to see it go in the past as we get to see him deal with him turning in all these businesses or killing all these people and leading up to the point of the actual them drowning and everything? I don't know. We'll see. This is the first Tom King story I have read in quite a while, so I'm going to give this one a B-, and hopefully it develops to become a better story and it doesn't fall down the tubes like previous Tom King stories have done for me in the past. The Shalab, issue 1, written by Ryan Stegman. The artwork here is done by Terrell Cannon. I like the artwork in this comic because it has some great colors. It reminds me of just a classic comic book in here. Unfortunately, what took away from this comic at times is there is very busy artwork and there's a lot of dialogue in this comic. So it covers up the art at times, except like when you have 2-page spreads in here. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of bright, vibrant colors here. And this was an interesting story about this normal Joe Schmo, everyday dentist who's divorced, and he's just fed up with life not going his way. He's got like his brother moving into the building next door as he's taking it over, and he thinks he's gonna get his dentist practice taken over. And then what happens is a superhero battle happens and it's destroying his building, and he's like, boo, oh poor me. He's just like, everything goes wrong for me. But our superhero has this artifact, and what happens is a Freaky Friday event actually happens where the Joe Schmo dentist winds up becoming the superhero, and all of a sudden he has the body of a superhero and he starts doing battle against the supervillain, and he's just like, man, this is great, I can do whatever I want. Meanwhile, while the superhero that became the dentist now, he's trying to guide our guy in the right direction, because he's like, you can't use your superhero strength and powers for gain. And he convinces them. He says he's going to do battle against the villain and whatnot. And so our dentist winds up leaving the old superhero who converted to the dentist, right? He winds up leaving, and then our guy, who's the average Joe Schmo superhero now, he's like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to use this power for my gain because it's payback time. And it was quite interesting, man. I'm going to deem this book worthy. It was actually a lot of fun. I felt like, though, the book did take a little bit of a lengthy time to get to the point of the end here, right? Like, it seemed like he was explaining way too long about, okay, you gotta use your power for good, you gotta use your power for good, you gotta use your power for good. And I felt like the fight between the supervillain and our hero was a little bit too long. But I'm very curious to see after this issue, what is our newly found Joe Schmo superhero going to do with these newfound powers? Is he going to use it for gain? Is he going to use it for gain at first and then become a good guy, or is he going to come straight out bad guy? I'm going to give this book a solid B. I love how Ryan Stegman's writing his own book here, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Here we go. Immortal Thor, issue 1. Al Ewing's debut, the spectacular, the 56-page, $7 special here. Now, when I got to the end of Donny Cates' issue 1 of Thor, I was very intrigued. How did I feel after reading this issue? We'll find out very shortly. So, in this book, I thought the artwork was okay. It didn't blow me out of the water. I felt like in many ways the artwork was maybe either too dark at times, too bright at times. I felt like Thor was just like smiling way too much at times when he's in the heat of the battle. I don't know. Very rarely did you get to see him like this, right? When he was fighting. But that's just me being picky. Here he kind of looks like he's like a little stoned. He's like, oh yeah, man, I'm flying through the sky. The dialogue in this book pissed me off. I didn't like the actual narration in the comic where it just like messes with the font and everything. And it tried too hard to be that language where he's always talking like with thee and thy and this and that, and I'm like, dude, just talk, and every once in a while say a thee and a thy. Like, it just seemed to go way too overboard with that, and I was just like, can't even understand half of what's going on because of the way he's speaking. But anyway, besides that, we wind up getting to see Thor, who's doing battle against frost giants. We get to see him meet up with Loki, and he gets to talk with him to see if it was him that's behind the frost giants and whatnot. And then we wind up getting to see the reconstruction of the Rainbow Bridge, where Thor had this, not Thor, but Loki has this magical stick, and just like that, with this magic, he winds up creating the bridge once again. And this is what I mean about the facial expression here. He's just like, he's like some little kid, you know? And I'm just like, all right, cool. So you wind up getting to see Thor go back to Midgard, and he interacts with everybody, and I guess he's helping mutants that are captured and whatnot, loosely connected to that. And then we wind up getting to see, which I guess is going to be the new bad in this series. And we wind up seeing the name of Tyrannos. He destroys the Statue of Liberty. We get to see Thor all power up here, and he does battle against this creature. And then the next thing you wind up seeing is we go to this other realm, this dark realm, and they're talking blah blah blah, and that was it. Not worthy. I'm sorry, this was fucking borefest for me, and this could be an unpopular opinion. I haven't heard anybody's opinions on this. I decided to read this. I didn't see any other YouTube reviews in here, but I was bored to tears reading this book. It took so long to get to the point of fighting a bad guy or any type of action in this comic. I just didn't need to see all the other unnecessary jibber jabber with the frost giants and the construction of the Rainbow Bridge. If you wanted to do that, you could have done that in that annual, right? Or make I don't know. It just seemed too long, too drawn out, just to get to a part where we see just the random bad guy at the end, that I was like, it's not even that impressive, you know? I just didn't like the dialogue. The artwork was weird, and I really don't know if I'm going to continue this comic. I really don't. I'm going to be on the fence with this one, I think. I like to give issues longer tries, or new series longer tries. So I might give it an issue 2, but at the end of the day, guys, I'm going to give this one a D-. This was just really poor for my taste. And I think I'm being a little bit generous by not giving it an F. Is there like a thing of F+? Like, this failed on so many levels for me, you know? And I said this ahead of time. Al Ewing is hit or miss. Like, right now, what he's doing in Venom is good. What he did in Immortal Hulk was really good. Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't like. And this first issue was just a sleeper fest. Maybe this is just like a little bit of a setup. We had to close out some story threads, but just not for me. It just was not for me. And if you like it, like I say, this is just my opinion, and that's okay if you like this. If you think this was an A+, that's awesome. I had someone in my comments going, Mike, if you didn't like Thor, there's something wrong with you. I don't know if that was kidding aside or if it was just a foreshadowing of what you're going to read, you know? So it is what it is at this point. We'll see what happens if I read issue 2. So I want to know in the comments below, what do you deem worthy or not worthy, guys? Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you love my content, here's more content right here. There's a random video, and of course, my newest Comic Book Day haul. You guys know I'm only one episode away from my 600th comic book haul. So click on that video, check out what I got. I got all kinds of variants, and of course, guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting, but remember, read those comics, even if they're Immortal Thor.